Funcționează? Da. Bună ziua. Good afternoon. We have here Michel Gondry, our special guest at this 18th edition of Transylvania International Film Festival. Michel, thanks so much for being with us for such a long time, actually. You're not here for 1 or 2 days, but for quite some time, and with multiple, with an extended showcase from your entire body of work in cinema, with your 11 films, and with your what I think it is your most personal and intimate project, the Film Factory, the Home Film Factory. It's going to be a very loose and relaxed discussion about Michel's work. We're going to talk a bit about the films, of course, but I would like you to encourage, in case you haven't seen the films, we were able to put an entire retrospective of Michel's work, so I encourage you to experience as many films as you can, to enter his very special, unique, inventive, crazy world. And I'm sure you are all familiar with his music videos work, so it's not gonna be only talking and talking. From time to time, we'll be watching some of his great music videos and start talking, using them as a departure point in the conversation. So, Michel, I'm not sure whether you are aware that this very festival was born 18 years ago in 2002. And our aim from the beginning was to have a main competition, the international competition of the festival, dedicated to first-time and second-time directors. And my choice at the very first edition, back in 2002, was to include your first feature, Human Nature, in our competition. I don't know whether our invitation ever reached you, because you are not there at our first edition. I think in very nostalgic terms about that edition, which was made almost like a guerrilla. Everything was put together in a very extreme way, but we were very happy to pull it off. I don't know whether there's anyone here who was at TIFF at the very beginning, at the first edition. Is there anyone who was?
Look with people with white hair.
Yes, exactly. Well, not white, or no hair.
No hair.
Okay, so even more reasons to go watch Human Nature, which is Michel's first film. But before talking a bit about his beginnings, I would like to watch, Mihai, if you can play one of the first music videos that we prepared, which is, what happened? Björk, yeah. Which is Bachelorette, which is not your first music videos that you made with her, but one of the most, I think, sophisticated, and in a way, I see a lot from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in that video. Yeah, always good to revisit it. You you said, I was reading one of your interviews. I mean, you had like super many and sparkling interviews, and you said about your music videos, they are just as important as film. It's never a small job to express something important. What do you think are like the important things that you addressed through your music videos, because they kind of informed your future film career? You made a lot of music videos in the 90s and you started your film career. Your first film, Human Nature, actually is from 2001, but you started to make music videos when? And if you can comment as well a bit this, your very own remark, it's never a small job to express something important.
On a personal level, uh, when I got asked to do videos, it was something amazing to my perception. It was an age where you need to find a job to pay the rent. I mean, this for me, I mean, but it's a need everybody has. And realizing that doing this as a job was quite amazing. So that was my first impression. And I had no idea I would make a feature film in the future. And for me, that was everything. And also, I was very into abstract animation, like Oscar Fischinger, Norman McLaren, and through the videos, I could explore uh, this abstract or graphic aspect, and also tell small stories, um, interact with people and my universe. That was a lot for me because I had no. I mean, I had ambition, but to me, making movies was unreachable. So it's all I had, and it was great. And I think over the years I developed, and I think right away, in fact, I developed a way to express myself and tell stories, build the sets, um, and that was magical to me. I remember the first time I came back from the store with cardboard, color paper, glue, scissors, and so on. Uh, I felt it was amazing because when I was an art student, uh, you had to. You didn't have enough money to buy all the stuff you wanted to buy. But for this occasion, for my first video, I had collected enough money, so the price of the material was shrunk in comparison. So I felt that in doing this job, I could have as much color paper that I wanted, and that was something very important for me.
How did you actually discover each other, you and Björk? Because I think among your huge body of work in music videos, everything you did with her is amazing and always very, very surprising, different. It's like a collision. You could see that there are like two great original minds colliding in 4 minutes. How
Well, had she just parted from the Sugar Cubes and started her solo career. She had done her first album debut, and she was looking for a director to do her first video. So she got in her house a big box of VHS tape, and she looked at them all, and she hated everything except a video that I had done for my band Wee Wee. So she wanted to meet with me, And when she came to Paris, I showed her my other video, the other video I did for my band, and she was laughing so hard she nearly fell on the floor. And that was the first time anyone in the world would appreciate these videos this way. So we connected right away by our sense of humor. Then later we started to exchange ideas. But Björk doesn't do competition. She chooses who she wants to work with, and then she sticks to it. She has this theory, and she shared it with me, that when you put people in competition, they lose their confidence, and they're not as good as you would want them to be. And also you select people on the base of their resistance to competition, which is nothing to do with creativity and artistic qualities. So she decided to work with me. We went to the restaurant and we exchange ideas. I wanted to do a wolf in the forest, and she wanted a white bear. So we compromised, and it was a black bear, a brown bear. And things went very naturally, and we had like 50 ideas, and then I regrouped all and wrote a little story. And then we shot it. And I noticed something, sorry I expanded the subject. I noticed something is you have to oversell yourself, because you are underconfident of what you can achieve. So you say you promise a result that you're not sure to achieve. But after there is a sort of a responsibility to deliver what you promised, and you work a little extra hard, and also you were underconfident of what you could do, then you reach this line that you promised, and so you do a work that's better than what you thought you could do. And also every day before the shooting, I would read my treatment to remind me what I promised I would deliver. And like it was some sentence like the forest is dark and scary, and it seems like a nice writing, but maybe it means nothing. So, but having that in mind when I shot in the forest, I made it like that. So, well, that's how it works. And then she asked me again and again, and each time I wanted to surpass myself, and the challenge was like really hard.
So, I mean, from what I understood and from what I could see, actually, you really work like very close together in putting together these music videos. From another interview, which I found it quite funny, is that once you enter this world and started to make music videos for like not French bands, but for like American bands, you were sent the lyrics in English. You admitted that you didn't speak that much English at that time, so you didn't quite know what those lyrics were all about, but you were like clinging on a word and you were designing everything. And okay, with Björk, she's very involved in this, but usually you get like 100% how shall I say, director's cut, so to say. I mean, everything is in your hands with other bands. I mean, how did you do, like, with this at the beginning when you didn't, and you were sent the lyrics and you were designing something and maybe without any input from the other bands? Because with Björk, it's clearly that it's an input from her.
Yeah, there were it depends on different type of artists. Among the artists that I really liked and respect, which I would say maybe the three, I don't know, because there is more than three. Björk, the White Stripe, or Beck, or the Chemical Brothers, who I work again and again, and there is Björk, who come up with a lot of ideas, but they are great ideas. They are ideas that enrich me, open my mind. And you have people like Beck, who have no idea, and I come up with the whole concept. And the race stripe, I think it's a bit the same. As for what I understood or not in the lyrics, what happened is like it was clear in the Foo Fighters video. I pull out the words I understand in the lyrics, and I recreate bridges between these words, and this becomes the story. So it's a parallel story that only communicates with a real story by through certain words I understand. But the way people write lyrics, it's a bit similar. They're going to want to have certain words, and then they fill up the gaps with other words that rhymes or are here for other reason. But I remember when I did the video for Foo Fighters, they told me, I wrote the story, and they told me Dave Grohl told me that it was closer to what he had in mind than what actually was written on the paper. So I don't know, it was maybe a bit of flattery, but this method was interesting because if you just illustrate every single word or meaning, then it becomes a little unmagical, let's say.
And talking about magic, where does all this magic comes from? I mean, if you can talk a bit about your beginnings, maybe remembering, I mean, all this burst of creativity, it runs in the family. When were you like struck with the first overdose of creativity, if you remember, by what age? I mean, and how
it's
did you
not really incredible or special. I remember my grandfather was an inventor. I really liked his stories. As for me, I can't remember myself without drawing, and I always drew. And I think it allows me. I was quite shy. I didn't really interact with people around me, but I could draw, and my parents would and other people would respond to that. Like if it's like you can sing, so you're gonna sing, and people appreciate. So you feel you can put something out of you, and people can see it and like it, and then you feel better about yourself. So I was doing drawing basically, and that's how it started. And if I lately, maybe it was for an interview, but I digged a bit into what it means to do drawings. In drawings, there is no limit. You can draw anything. I mean, in any other media, it implies a technical aspect, financial aspect. If you want to do a rocket that goes to Neptune, you just draw it. And if you want even to do a model, it becomes heavier. And then, of course, if you do it for real, it's another story. So I felt that with drawing, I could do anything I wanted. And I had a social role in my family. I was the artist. That's nice to have a function. So that's how it started. And of course, I had ideas. I most of the time remember my dreams. I mean, I can't talk about magic because it's not for me to say what's magical or not. But yes, I was drawing a lot.
And talking about dreams, I mean, it's like how does it work? Because all your films and most of your work has this like it feels like a feverish dream. It has like this dream-like like quality. It's like your creativity informs the dreams, or you take inspirations from your dreams. Your dreams look the way they are because of the way you think and the way you build yourself as a personality, or you draw inspiration from your dream and then put it in your work?
I think it's both. It's sort of a loop. I mean, to remember your dream, and some people don't remember their dream, and some people do remember their dream. I do remember my dreams, not all of them, of course, but sometimes it can be very detailed. And I think the fact, too, the action of remembering your dream give you a sort of a consciousness and make your dream more memorable after. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but I believe a little bit that in telling your dream or just remembering your dream, you make them more accessible to your memory. And I'm not even sure that's good to remember your dreams. On my side, on a creative level, it's been helpful several times. And also, sometimes I wake up very sad. And if I remember my dream, I can tell, okay, I dreamed about my late father. Or it gives me a reason to explain my mood. On the other hand, I have no idea that maybe my mood triggered the dream about my dad. So I think it's both.
It's both ways. Um, I want to stay a bit also in this territory, because your work also feels very playful, and I hope it's not going to be an offensive question, because obviously it's obvious that you love to play, yeah, and you love to play with rather with analog concepts than with digital ones. You like to build stuff from paper or cardboard using traditional way of making animation rather than digital. That's going to be another question about how do you feel about the new technologies, whether you feel at ease with them, you like to work with them, and or you prefer to work the old way. But the older we get, and probably the older you get, there is still the same level of playfulness. So I feel tempted to call you like a big kid, and there's like a sort of childishness in your work that's maybe nostalgic, that's maybe, and I mean, how do you perceive it as a grown up? This being stuck, let's say, so to say, in your childhood. I won't use the word immature, but if I'm gonna use it, I'm gonna use it in a good way. How do you feel about that?
Well, you asked me a question for 10 minutes. So
2 minutes.
I had an answer for the beginning, but yes, that's this one. People always see that as playing or being childlike, or there is a naivety, which is true. But also there is the idea that you have an idea, you have a concept, and you're going to try it and see if it works. And that's the most exciting thing, I think, in my work. And sometimes the producer, they don't understand why I want to do something in this way that was not done before. They think if it was not done, it's because it's a bad idea. But I think differently. So any little thing I'm going to do, it's the illustration of an idea I had before, And the excitement, if you see, is to see if this idea works or not. The idea, the concept that it's childlike or not, it's a bit beside the point. I'm not trying to be naive or to be well childlike or there is this word that's always attributed to me. It's whimsical, but I don't really know what it means. So that's what I am, and I don't even know. But the experimentation is what really drives me. At the time we were shooting on film, you had, and I'm not saying it was better, because now I use digital and I do other stuff that are equally exciting. But I remember the first film I did, the first short little, and it was really minimal. So it was animation. When you do animation, you do a frame, you move the thing or you change the drawing, and you do another frame, and so on, for hours and hours. And then at the time you could not see the result. And what's magical about animation is like you start by static images, and then when they are put together at a certain rate, which is about 12 drawings per second, suddenly you create a new dimension, which is the motion. And that's something that still blows my mind. So I move things, I take picture in between each move, and then I look at them, and it's moving on its own. So at the time, you had to wait 1 week or 3 days or 4 days before the film was processed, and you would go to a theater in the lab, and they would screen the film, and then you'd see your drawing coming to life, or your object moving on their own, and that was amazing. And my friend who helped me with the technical aspect told me, "Oh, you'll see with the time you will lose this excitement," but it never went away. I remember my first little film. It's called Bolide. The lab call we had done with my friend, that was my co-locataire. How do you say? Anyway, he was living in my apartment. Roommate. We edited the film on the negative, so it probably doesn't speak to you, but that was really deep into the technical aspect. So the lab called me and said, "It's a disaster. You have to come to see your film. There is a big problem." And I saw that in between each shot, you had a little jump. Well, I didn't care personally. What I cared was the little car was moving on its own, and you had the city in the background with a multiple layer, and it feels more deep than it was, and I was overjoyed. So that's basically what drives me. And even now I'm working with actors, I give them a direction, and I see the result. Jim Carrey, who is very easy to direct for me, I tell him, couldn't say a line. So I told him he was too dramatic, and he was talking to his son, and I said, "No, you can't talk like that to your son," and he couldn't do it. So I said to him, say your line as if you were reading a shopping list. And then I see the result. It works, it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, I say, "Sorry, let's try something different." But the idea to throw an idea and then wait a bit, and then you see the result, it's my engine, let's say.
You are talking about experiments. So in music videos, it's easy, let's say, to experiment. I mean, maybe there's not that much pressure. I mean, how easy or difficult was for you to experiment once you enter the big machine of making movies? And if you can go back in time at your very first film, Human Nature, which, of course, myself growing up and watching all your videos, I was like super excited to see your first film, and I was very pleased with it. But on the other hand, I know that the film got mixed reviews, and I wanted to know, how did you feel about that? I mean, what was if it made you questioning something about making cinema, you know, in the first
Yeah, I
time?
mean, I don't know what cinema is, and I don't want to know. So that's one thing. And what I can say about this experience is, for me, it was amazing. I remember the first day of shooting, I couldn't believe I was doing a real feature film. It was something I had never dreamed of. And being, I mean, I dreamt of it a few years before I did Human Nature. I remember my first thought was I was excited, anxious to see the movie with a big poster in the street and in a theater. And the day of the opening of the film was, in my expectation, the most amazing day of my life. And in my experience, it turned out to be the worst day of my life because it didn't work out. In France, it opened September 12, 2001. So one day, I remember I was doing the promotion of the film on the channel in France, and we were in the waiting room. I was next to Guillaume Canet, a French actor and director. And we saw the Twin Tower on fire, I mean, with the smoke and everything. And we went to do the interview on the television. And in the middle, there were a little advertising pause. And the journalist came and said it's a terrorist attack. So they all left the room, and we, with Guillaume and I, we were left, and then the lights switched off. We were in the dark, and that was it, basically. I'm very selfish because, of course, I feel sorry for what happened. But my main problem was that nobody went to see the movie.
I've read, I think, a super sincere definition about criticism, because this is a very sensitive topic for any filmmakers to hope having great reviews for their work. And you said actually that the critics that hurt are generally the ones that are true, which I think I think few directors will acknowledge this.
The bad critic is one of the true?
The critics that hurt are generally the ones that are true.
What if you? I don't know if you're quoting me, but what I remember saying and what I think is, where it hurt the most, it's probably because it's true. Yes, I took some lesson, but then on the other hand, you don't want to follow the critic all the time. You don't want to give them so much importance.
Yeah, that was my second question, whether you actually read critics, whether you care about them, whether you take anything into account, or you just do your job and let the critics do what they have to do.
Can you block your ears, everybody? I read everything that has my name in it. I mean, come on. If you know that your sister-in-law trashed you in your back, you want to know what she said.
Do you? I don't.
Yes, I do.
I don't.
You don't? Well, we're different, I guess. I wish
Yeah.
I was like you. So, I don't know. You can call it narcissism. I think my opinion is there are a lot of directors or musicians who say, I never listen to my album, I never watch my movies. I think they're a bit lying, because it's cool. You did something and you don't care. You don't even care. So I am a bit Yeah, I read on when the review is good, I'm happy. When it's bad, I feel a bit humiliated. It's like if somebody tell you you have a bad breath or something bad.
But this actually didn't was not the case with your second film, which generated consistently from good to great reviews, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And I remember reading actually reviews for that film that felt pretty much like literature. I mean, I was up to the point that I didn't care whether they expressed an opinion, but what I found it like the most rewarding and interesting with your second film is that the reviews were like sometimes as original, surprising. It felt like a piece of literature. The critics were challenged to write something as complex and original and heartfelt as that film. And yet again, I was, because you said that, of course, there are people who don't listen to their albums or don't watch their films again. Eternal Sunshine, I dare to say that it's one of your best work, whether you like it or not, me saying this. What's your problem today with this film? Is there a problem with this film? I mean, are you...
Well, I've done 9 movies or 10 movies since, and people always come to me telling me that this film is their favorite film. I mean, I have to live with that. It's better than have 0 film.
How would you feel if someone would come to you, like 1 in a million, saying, I really hated that film?
I would maybe be happy.
Well, we'll have an occasion.
I'd like to say something that could... it's quite important and could... for some people who do this job that I do, it could help them, maybe. When I did Human Nature, it's kind of failed. Bad reviews, no audience. I went away in the countryside in France, and I remember it was not only there, but I remember specifically sitting next to a river, and I had a notebook, like a 50 pages, and I wrote on one side everything I find that was failed, and the review that hurt me the most because I felt they were true. And I turned the notebook and I wrote a solution for each line that was in the other side. And that was extremely constructive. And when I went to shoot Eternal Sunshine, I had this notebook with me all the time, and every morning I would read a few pages. And the notes were maybe some critic would say, the character seems stuck in the frame, and they feel they can't move freely. And I have to say, I had done a storyboard. All my characters had their position, and then when we shot, I made sure they were doing what was on the paper. And here I had the idea right away. Basically, don't do a storyboard. Make sure you can let your actor decide where to go in the frame, and make sure you can follow them without shooting a palm tree. That was one of the problems in Human Nature. It was not supposed to be in Los Angeles, so the palm tree everywhere. Also, Spike Jonze, the director, was sort of producer on the film, and I had tendency to refuse all of his ideas because I felt he wanted me to not be myself. So I anticipated, and I sort of took everything he said as frustrating or negative, and I wrote, don't refuse an idea on this basis. Is because you are against the person who gives you the idea. Accept ideas that if they are good for the film, or refuse them if they are bad for the film. Of course, based on your own judgment. But don't reject an idea because you feel that the producer or the guy who's giving you the idea, he's trying to make you not yourself. So I have a resistance, a rejection of outside inspiration that I try to avoid and to be more open. So I think it was, and unfortunately I tried to do it after, but never really did it. But I think writing down what you think that was wrong, coming from your own opinion, somebody told you, the press, and then finding a solution on the other side of the notebook. It's very constructive.
We'll have a little break and watch the second music video that we prepared. I remember when it was out. The one, I'm not sure whether it's the only one you did with Kylie Minogue for Come Into My World. And I was like, how the fuck did he do it? And then...
Please don't swear.
What?
Please don't swear.
And then I've seen like a 5-minute intervention of you on YouTube explaining that it's actually very simple, you know, and it's just like in life, the simplest ideas feel complicated.
No, it's not simple. I doubt I say that.
By explaining, you made it feel like simple, or at least simple to understand, because...
Okay.
Yeah, so let's have a look. It deals with multiplicity, which is another of your recurrent themes in a lot of things you do. How did you come up with the idea? I mean, what was the main...
Well, I have to make a confession. There is this film made by a director called Big, who's Polish. It's called Tango, and it's a room where people come in and out to do a task. And once they've done it, they keep coming and do it again, and there is more and more people. And at the end, it's completely crowded. It's a masterpiece, and he got many prizes. It's sort of a landmark, especially at the time he has to paint each character out to separate them. So this existed. So I more or less consciously I took a similar concept and I made it in a moving space. There were other inspiration. It was this French musician called Gérard Majax. Nobody knows it here. He was very, very prominent on TV in the 70s. And he would do little tricks for kids. He had a little show before dinner time. And one of the tricks that really stuck with me was he would show sewing needle with the little hole, and there were one piece of thread he would put in, and then he hide it, and after half a minute he would come back, and there were like 40 piece of thread.
I've seen the video on
Oh
YouTube.
yes, it's on my DVD.
It's in your DVD, yeah.
So, but I'm gonna still explain to the audience. So basically, the trick is he would do a little knot. He would take the end of the thread and do a little knot before the hole of the needle, and then he would turn and turn and turn. So each time it would be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on loops, and he cut both sides. So he had double of thread, and there is a bit of that in this video, in the sense that she keeps turning, and each time she comes back to the same place. Her version that was there before repeats itself. So we go 4 or 5 times. And the difficulty was, one, to get a motion control that would repeat. I mean, repeat, that's a motion control repeats the same motion. But to have the end situation of the camera going smoothly into the first one, that was complicated. And then other complication was make sure that Kylie didn't use the same pass twice, otherwise she cover herself and you don't see her. And so we did maybe 10 takes, and number 7 I think was the best. But Kylie Minogue is a very nice person, and I think I would never have been able to do this shooting with, let's say, Madonna, because we had to take the best take for the concept, not necessarily the best take for her look. But of course, she looks good from many angles, but there is still moment where a normal star of her caliber would say, no, I want to be look better. So it's good because she's a very popular artist, a very popular song, and she accepts to do something a bit weird.
I want to jump from here because this extreme level of playfulness, I find it in one of our most ambitious projects this year at TIFF, which is your 100% original concept, the the Home Movie Factory. I wanted to ask you what prompted this idea. When did you come up with this idea? Why? And how much freedom can this give people, and which, let's say, could be the limits of this project?
So, how the idea came? This question has been asked to me
Million times.
but I try to find a different
Thank you.
answer each time. So it's not boring for me or the audience. And there are many different beats that pushed me, inspired me to do that. And because we are talking about experiment, starting something and then letting things grow, develop, and watching the result, there is something that really excites me in the Home Movie Factory, is that we take a group of people, there are a number of texts and rules to read, and we leave them alone. They go with the camera so they write their own story. They go with the camera in the succession of sets that are built to shoot their concept, their story. And then you see the result. And I'm not here to give any direction. They're on their own, basically. I mean, they are mediator. They are following them to make sure they're not completely lost. But mostly it works. They decide of everything themselves. So I try and work very hard for a very long time to find a set of rules. So a group of 10 people in having a good time, talking to each other, deciding together by round of hands what decision to make, then shooting in a series of sets what comes out from that, because people can watch a movie just after it's been shot. So I don't know if you want me to explain more in detail, or people here mostly know how it works.
I think it's enough, because I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, to just be given the basic concept and the temptations, and let people discover what they can actually do within the 15 sets that are. I was just intrigued. I've read today in the festival newspaper that you actually don't encourage. I think you even ban editing. There's no editing allowed in this process. Why is that?
It's simple. I don't want other people, like a technician, professional, to intervene into the process. I want people to come out of the experience, watch something that they made 100% by themselves.
In the most genuine way, without any...
Yes, because if something makes an editing, then it becomes like, you go to Walt Disney and they do a set and you have a sword on green screen and you act like the Star Wars, which is not Walt Disney, by the way, but and so basically you feel you did something, but you did so little, and everything was framed, controlled by people and by a professional. And the idea here is that you do something and the group feel that they've done it. And you can do it at home if you take the text. Text just help people to organize themselves and make sure there will be no dictator or nobody that's going to take over and decide for the story and for the rest. So you go through that and you look at what you've done with all the mistakes. Many people forget to say action before to press record. So you hear action in the take. And there is little things like that. And sometimes people invert the recording and the pause. So you see their feet or the preparation of the scene for 5 minutes, but it's very fun to watch. The mistakes are sometimes even more fun than the successful part. So very important for me that people do everything on their own. But there are little sets with a video that moves. So there is a bit of sophistication, but it's something that you make work yourself. There is a mechanical system, so when you want to see, you can see a car moving in front of the video of a landscape moving. So you feel the car is moving, but there is a wheel to decide the speed. So you do it basically. There is nothing that somebody does for you.
And do you get to watch actually because I know that you you stock all of all of the results. Do you get to watch them on a regular basis? I mean,
some.
How many?
Some I watch them and I feel depressed because I think, okay, it's not working clearly. It's a disaster. And then I see one that's genius. So I feel, okay, it's working.
So you, how many little films like that were generated in the how old is the project? I mean, because you traveled a lot with it.
The project is 15. I have to look at my people.
17 years old.
Oh, it's like you, nearly. 5,000 films.
5,000 films.
And so you multiply by 10 for the participants, right? A bit more? Lots. No, it's not huge. I mean, in 17 years. But, well, we like to do it in cities. And it's we meet different people. They make different films. It's a nice.
We are very curious how it's going to turn out here. I'm sure there will be a lot of funny ones, but the most important, I think, people will have fun. I also want to talk a little bit about your work in the TV series business, because this is super fashionable today, and I know you were working on a TV series with Jim Carrey. You practically, it was your second time working with Jim Carrey after quite some time, since Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And if you can maybe do like sort of a comparison, how is it to work in this like super dictatorship like regime of making a TV series, because it's a very strict. How at ease did you feel on the set of a mini series?
Very frustrated. Incredibly frustrated. I wanted to punch the face of the showrunner. The guy who ran the TV show is called a showrunner. I'm sure you know that. He's the main writer. He has a writer for him who writes some episodes. He rewrites them after. And that's his project. He decides of everything. And I don't know if it's general, but the one I had and have is not very elegant in his way to show his authority. I felt tricked. I'm going to be very negative because I think, no offense, but I don't think he's going to reach Hollywood too much, what I say. So I'm going to empty my bag. Yeah, I think he's a douchebag, the guy. He, like, let's say, I didn't understand that, because my agent say, do this series, you're going to put your creativity in it, and that's great to make TV at the time. So I said yes, and then I realized that each idea I have, I had to submit it to the showrunner, and he would decide if he likes it or not. And even if it was a purely directing idea. And one day he told me, can you do a close-up of this person and stay on on her for the whole take, I said no, because I wanted to do a motion between her and Jim Carrey, and my philosophy, which I was using for Eternal Sunshine, was that if somebody says something and is not on camera, it's fine. Because you have other information. You have the guy who is listening. You can hear what she said. And it's a style I wanted to do for the scene. It was my directorial decision. And I made a big meeting to say it was unacceptable. And nobody was on my side. Wow. Because it was established that the showrunner decide of everything. And it's like being at school. I mean, maybe I'm too used to be a director. It's not being a director, basically. But I have no problem when the producer, the writer, give me directions. I have to filter a bit, and sometimes I don't have choice. But it doesn't bother me when I do a film. But to do a TV series, it's like you have a teacher who knows shit. Sorry, I'm swearing now.
It's okay, it's acceptable.
Who's telling you how to do your job?
And was it the case, or I assume it wasn't, when you were working within the Hollywood structure to make your, let's say, so-called superhero film, The Green Hornet? Was it the same case? Did you feel the same pressure?
For different reasons. Because Seth Rogen and his partner, Evan Goldberg, were writing, acting, Seth Rogen was acting, and producing the film. And I came very late because I was replacing a director. And same thing, I could not decide. I mean, I could suggest idea, but at the end of the day, it was Seth Rogen who would decide. And it's very frustrating. It was a scene of 5 seconds when you see Kaito, the Asian karate guy, who works for Brit Red, who is super rich. We see him coming back to his apartment, and it was this beautiful shot by the freeway when you see he's living in a very shitty little apartment. And it was taking 5 seconds in the editing. And it was beautiful, and he would tell in one shot that he worked with his boss and who is super rich, and he lives in a very difficult place. And they would not have it, because it was pointless to them. So I said, okay, after all my arguments that were rejected, I said, I'm the director. I just asked a 5-second shot to be kept. And I was told, we don't understand what you mean by being the director. It's nothing to do with what we're talking about. And it was like that for many other reasons. Well, I'm not so bitter because I got a lot of money.
Well,
I could live for 10 years with the money I got, because I don't have a lifestyle that's very eccentric. So when I remember the pain of to endure that and the bad reviews.
You check your bank account and you instantly feel happy when you.
Sorry.
When you remember all this like pain, you immediately check your bank account and you feel instantly happy, or not?
Yeah, I have to ask somebody to tell me for my bank account.
You mentioned a lot the word frustration. I mean, and you made 11 films that are like very different. You work both in France and US. I want you to tell me which film, which set, which configuration did you feel the most comfortable with? I mean, which is like, is there a film where you didn't have any shitty boss or anyone telling you what to do or what to take out? Some film out of these 11 films that are very different, you made in different contexts, where you were like 100% satisfied with the outcome?
Well, it's two different things, like satisfied how things went and how I can make the decision and feel this freedom. And it's mostly a question of budget, unfortunately. The smaller the budget you have, the biggest control or in creativity and so on. So I can talk about two films that I, for some reason, or it's because they talk about teenager. The Way and the Eye, who was shot entirely in a bus in the South Bronx, and Microbe and Gasoline, who was shot in France. Same thing with two teenagers in the French mountains. And, well, it's simple. When you fail, and it was your idea, it's not nice, but it's okay. When you fail and it was not your idea, it's horrible. It's really here the difference, and that's why I like it. People will think it's control, but I don't know if it is. It's like, if it's your idea, at least you try something, and it works and it doesn't work, and you learn something. If you execute the idea of somebody else, and it fails also, you learn from something you tried, and you don't feel the same bitterness. But let's come back to the Way and the Eye. It's a concept a little that has a bit to do with Home Movie Factory. Basically, we started a sort of film workshop in after-school program that was in the South Bronx, and we took the 40 first people who signed up. Then I had a grid of a storyline, and we interviewed those kids for 1 year, 1.5 years, and we took all their story and we make them fit into the grid. So this character was very close to this character in the grid, and this one there, and we built the whole story and casting around that, and it was great because these kids, they are so happy. It's like because they are paid, of course, and it's like a summer job, and we have very strong moment, and I mean I'm happy with outcome. Maybe it's a bit long, but I see kids that I really liked. They're themselves, they tell their story, so you can learn a bit how they live. For instance, it's a big public school, and they don't have the right to carry a cell phone. So every morning they go to the little grocery store, and they pay $1 and they get a paper bag. They put their phone in and they have their name on it. And I just find that out 1 week before we shot. And so I wanted to show it because these kids, they have to, if you add up, it's like $200 in the year just to do something that they should not pay for. There is a cop at the beginning of the metal detector at the entrance. So there are many little things that I wanted to show, and that show how these kids have to deal with. So that was something that I really liked. Even if the movie could be rotten or whatever, I would still be happy because I did it. I did my idea and I experienced, and then I got to shoot kids that I liked. One of the kids actually that had a role at the end of the film, we hired him to do a part that's pretty good in the TV series.
Is there something you wanted to do and haven't done yet, like a dream,
yes.
like a dream project that?
Many, I mean, of course.
And it's a question of money. It's a question of time. It's a question of poor technology. It's a question of
many times it has been the question of finding the right writer. Certain domain I can write, and if it talks about some experience I had, and certain other domain I can't because there is all a vocabulary and things that I have no idea how it works. So can't find the right screenwriter has been a reason for several projects that we let go.
And you never felt tempted to work again with Charlie Kaufman?
Oh yes, but he's directing now. First, I was frustrated because he didn't want to admit that I wrote part of the story, which is true. I didn't give him just a concept. We had the story, and so in his mind, I was just a guy who find a concept and give it to him. And there is many things. For instance, to go backwards in time for the memories. He was against it. He thought it was too cheesy, and he did it, but never acknowledged that was coming from me. So, this being said, he's such a good writer that first I didn't want to ever work with him again, and then with the year on meeting mediocre writer, I still think he's the best one I worked with.
We have a bit of time to take some questions from the audience. There's a mic, so or speak out loud. Raise your hand and yeah. So, do you have questions? Okay. You have a mic? No, you have a mic.
So you said in the interview that you first told story by graphics and not you didn't write at first. You begin by pictures, and how comes you never made a long film in animation? You used it in your clips, but not in a long one.
I did the one for Chomsky. It's on the animation. I had a project with my son, his universe, his character. Didn't happen.
With your son, you said?
I don't have a precise answer. I think it would be nice. No, I don't know, actually.
Thank you.
Okay. Over there.
Hi, thank you very much for being in our festival. It's an honor. And, well, I didn't hate The Spotless Mind. I'm sorry, I cannot say that, but my favorite movie is The Mood Indigo, L'écume de jour. I read the interview you gave for the newspaper of the festival, and you said that creativity is something that goes along with immaturity. Can you develop maybe how is that going together? Because I think you're very creative. Are you immature as well?
I think he already answered this. I was like, but
yes, but I'm going to do it again. I have to find another answer. For instance, my girlfriend, she really hates me when I don't answer the question. What's happening is that she asks me a question and I think of the answer, and then I think of all the implications. And after 3 minutes, I give the answer. It's really complete answer. But her waiting for 3 minutes with my eyes in the vague, I look like a drug addict or something. She hates me for that. So now I'm trained myself. When somebody asks me a question, I say, sorry, I'm not answering because I'm thinking.
Take your time.
Yeah, I mean, if you answer right away, how can you say something of any value? So that makes me look a little retard. Like a child, let's say. That's one example, because my mind run too many directions, maybe at once, and I need a bit of time to refocus and say, oh yes, it was about a question. I mean, it's nothing to do, but it's a good trick. Once I was doing that, and after a while, my girlfriend, she was upset, and she said, why don't you answer? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I was just thinking that your red sweater fits you very well. And she really, it really worked.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't answer the question. I'm going to answer it. Well, I think when you're a kid, you learn the world by playing. And a good example is to see the kitties. They play 24 hours. I mean, they sleep also, but they play most of the time. I think we are the same. And at some point, because it fits me well, I decided to continue with this way of interacting with the world. And to me, it's not abnormal. To me, it's normal. It might look like I'm not very mature from the outside, because when you go into adult life and you have to work or do certain activities that are not so fun, you change your behavior and you look adult, let's say. Me, I found a way to make a living in continuing the way I was behaving when I was a kid. So why should I be adult when being, I mean, I'm adult, I assuming, I earn money, I assume, I don't know, I have maybe 10 people who live from me. So I don't think I'm really a kid. But I found a way to earn a living in playing, so there is no reason for me to stop.
Thank you.
You mentioned before something about your son. What does your kids think about your playfulness as they experience it in your films? What do they think about your films?
Well, I have a daughter who's 4, so I mean, we play together, so but I don't think that's relevant with her. My son is 28, and he's an artist also. He's a more serious artist in the way. I mean, it's not so serious, but it's darker, let's say. Maybe he's more mature than me, but I'm not so sure. It's hard to tell. But sometimes he would criticize me and try to correct me when I'm going too much off the track. Like, okay, I should not say that, but it was a very short period of time. Somebody made me smoke pots. So it was not me, but I smoked pots for. Each time he would see me with a pot, he would grab it from me and throw it. Couldn't stand it. And the reason is he's been through this period. He became paranoid, and he didn't want me to become paranoid. I didn't listen to him, and I became paranoid. So he was, and many times he has more maturity than me. But I have to be very careful with my influence on his work. I'm trying to be the most transparent. It's very hard for me. Ask me suggestion and judgment, And if I don't say anything, he's going to think I don't care. If I say something, he's going to say I don't understand. So I don't know what to do. I find an idea which I think that's great, because he's working on a movie, but I think he's going into a weird direction. I'm not sure it's going to work, but I don't know. So I asked Spike Jonze to meet with him and to talk. And it was great. I think it was a great idea. Because from me, he cannot take any advice, but from somebody else, he can.
And I was, I'm going to tell you like a little anecdote, because I was, so obviously your son grew up watching your videos and films like from an early stage, and I was interested, how did he perceive this level of playfulness and let's say childishness in your films, the way he maybe perceived them when he was a kid. How did he relate with that? Because yesterday, for instance, I was talking to on Instagram with the son of Tudor Giurgiu, who made the opening film, and I asked him, "Have you seen your father's film?" And he said yes. And I said, "And how was it?" He was okay. I said, "Just okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, just okay." I was all the time on the phone playing during the film. And I was like, "Not even during the sex scenes, you didn't abandon the phone?" And he was like, "No, actually no. Only in the end, when there was like some tough action scenes, this is when I dropped the phone and I paid attention to the film." So I find very funny and actually meaningful these like interactions between parents and sons or daughters, especially in this context, because sometimes when you're a parent, you also make your films, your work is also, you can't stop thinking that your sons are gonna watch them.
Yes.
Yeah, and what do you want to say through your work to your sons?
Yeah. Well, when my son was young, I made sure he could see it. There were nothing that would hurt him, and because I wanted him to be part of the adventure. But very quick, he becomes much darker than I am, and. But I remember there is this funny thing when he was pretty young, like 10 or 12. We went to see Jeanne d'Arc, Joan of Arc, the one, Le Luc Besson. And we walked back in the house, and it was night. And we walk above a cemetery. So he started to talk to me, and he said, "You know, Dad, the blood, the head cut off, and the people dying, it doesn't scare me at all. It doesn't scare me at all. What scares me is the flashback." The flashbacks. He's scared of the flashbacks. Well, maybe it shows that he understood the essence of movies. And very soon he watched Clockwork Orange when he was 12. And after, the best experience was the Rodorovich, the Mexican director.
Jodorowsky. Alejandro Jodorowsky.
And it was a mountain story. So I think there is a monster, and he has no head, and he has a dwarf or a little guy who sings for him. And my son would describe me each scene before it comes or during, and it was the best experience in my life. That was hilarious. And sometimes we would watch movie with gore moment, and he would protect me by hiding my eyes, because he knew I don't like too much violence. So, well, he's a great artist. We had a project together, but it's complicated and it's painful if it doesn't work. He's invested in a project, and as his age, 2 years, is represent way more than for me, and then it's not working. So it's hard to do. Alfonso Caro, he did a movie with his son, which is great. The Gravity. His son wrote the screenplay.
Before watching the third and the last video that we chose, which is one of your newest, made for the Chemical Brothers, Gotta Keep On. I have, like, let's say, a personal question. I found, and I hope I remember accurately, this time the definition or the quote. I think I've read one of the best definition you gave to the concept or the idea of love. I think you said something that if you spend at least 20 times, 20 minutes talking with someone in your head, then it's love. I want to know whether you still stand by this definition.
Yes, I'm happy about this sentence.
Yeah, it's a super cool one, and I'm happy you stand by it. Yes. Okay, so let's watch the super fun, colorful, inventive, and groovy music videos you did for the Chemical Brothers. You can dance if you want. You shot it this year, this video. You shot it this year.
This year?
This year. I mean.
Yeah. But it's with my brother.
It's with your brother.
Yeah.
It starts pretty normal, and then it gets, what was your favorite word? Whimsical. After the second half.
I directed this video with my brother. So
well,
he got the idea, most of the idea. The idea started from the Soul Train, the show from the 70s, where you always had two rows of people with a couple dancing in the middle. And yes, and he added CGI or 2D to alter the dancing with a little motion.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michel, for granting us this great and very personal, actually, masterclass. Thanks so much for opening up for us. And I invite you to, Michel will be here with us for at least 3 of his films that he will attend to introduce and do the Q&A sessions afterwards, which is Eternal Sunshine, Moon Indigo, and Be Kind Rewind. You know that you have to introduce them and to do the Q&A. Or you did that already? No. They are yet to come, these 3 films. So you get to meet Michel watching these films and then asking him questions about the films. Thanks so much once again for being with us. I hope you didn't feel that invaded or intruded or abused. Thanks so much for, okay.
I feel I said a couple of things I should not.
Well,
please forget about them, don't write them. I have second thought about, I apologize when I said it would not reach Hollywood. It might actually.
I don't think so.
I'm going to lose my job.
We have someone from Variety, but I think he left by the time you said the mean things about I think he's gone. Or are you? Chris, are you still here? No, he's gone. Good. So you're on the... he's there. But you didn't listen, right? No, okay, yeah, forget. Delete Eternal Sunshine, delete the memory of it. Thanks so much.